Hello everyone, today I'm here to talk to you about the Guild of Merchant Explorers. This is a brand new flip and place game from AEG. It definitely draws from roll and writes, flip and writes, so it's got that sort of feel. Let's roughly talk about how you play the game and then I'll give you my thoughts. So at the start of the game, you're going to pick one of the maps. Everyone's going to be playing on the same one. Now there are some recommendations to start on sort of the easier maps, because like this one here, for instance, has these areas of volcano that you can't go on, and one of the other ones, which is on the other side, has an extra different space type. So, you know, you can start with the easier ones, and then you've got the options for the next games to play on them. Now, the gameplay is very simple. You are effectively going to be flipping over cards, and they are going to be either these sort of basic ones or these investigation special cards. And these are a really cool part of the game. So let's talk quickly about these. It's very simple. When this card is turned over, for instance, from the deck, you're going to place it there. So you're going to know exactly what's already come out in the round and what's still to come. When you place this one, you can place a cube from your supply onto a mountain space. That mountain space has either got to be connected to the very starting point or to one of your other pre-built cities in future rounds normally, or next to other cubes that you've already placed. This one then is just two desert pieces, two sort of plains, grass places, two adjacent spaces. They could be of anything, so maybe a little hop on some water and then onto the grassland on the other side, and then three water spaces in a connected straight line. That's the basic things. They're going to come up in all 4 rounds, and then you slowly add these in. So in round 1, there's just the round 1 card. Now, the way that works is when that comes up, everyone's going to get 2 investigation cards, investigate cards. These special cards are special powers. They are unique placements. Maybe it is place up to 5 cubes in an area of water or mountain, or maybe every area in a straight line of plains, the grass type. So everyone's going to have a slightly different power. And then in round 2, when that number 1 card comes back out again, you'll trigger that again. And then the number 2 will come out and you'll get a second power, which will again trigger in round 3. And then in round 4, there's a card that basically means you pick one of your 1, 2 or 3 powers to trigger again. So you're going to get a lot of difference by the end of that 4th round from your other teammates, from the other players, sorry, and that's how it's playing. You are slowly but surely putting out cubes, and when you've covered all of a certain area, so all of a mountain area, you're going to remove one of those cubes and put down a little village that in round 2 is still going to be there. Because at the end of the rounds, all of your normal cubes are removed from the board, which means you have to then start from that middle space, the starting location, or your villages. Covering spaces are going to get you coins, which are worth points. Placing down villages is going to get you points as well, and giving you those extra places to start from in the future rounds. Getting to sort of some of the edges where there's these discovery towers, they're going to get you points. And then there's objectives as well, and they're sort of quite neat little sort of things to aim for. You're very rarely going to be able to trigger them all first, because there is an advantage. If you do that objective first, you get more points than everyone else, sort of thing. Maybe that's get 2 of those village city things put down on grassland areas. So if you do that first, you're going to maybe get 10 points, and then everyone else will get 5 points for doing that later in the game. So everyone's maybe aiming for different objectives. They've got different style special cards for when those 1, 2, 3 or 1, 2, 3 cards come out the deck. And well, that's kind of what you're doing. You're just placing cubes out throughout a round, exploring across, trying to link up trading cities, discovering some ruins, shipwrecks and stuff to get you cards from the deck that might just score you points or put cubes down. And that is pretty much how the game plays, and it's whoever's got the most points wins. So let's start off with this board. I really like the idea of the board. It's not entirely necessary, but it's really good that you're putting the cards out. It's a really easy visual reminder of these are the cards that have come out. So when you're trying to work through your plans of, well, I kind of need to get across the water and then some grass. Has the grass already come out? No. Has the water? No. Well, they're going to be coming out. If they come out in the right order at least, I could do that. So it just helps you sort of plan ahead a little bit. And also it's quite good so you can very quickly see, like, these are my special powers coming up. So it's not massively needed, this board. It's a nice touch. Now on to some of the other production parts. So these boards are, they're thin-ish, but they're of relatively good quality. You're not sort of moving about too much. You're placing lots of cubes. Unfortunately, I do find that placing cubes on here and then having to take some off, especially with those ruin spaces, when you've gone to a shipwreck and you've got a card for getting there, you have to put a little chest token down to sort of say it's been opened, and you can go back there, but you can't get something else from that shipwreck. And that's it works logically, and when you're looking at the board it's fine, but it's a bit fiddly to be removing cubes on and off. I don't know how they could have got around it. Maybe they could have made it an actual roll and write, but then you'd have to be rubbing out lots of cubes and stuff placed. It's just, sometimes it's a bit fiddly, and you've got a lot of border round the edge that I think they could have just sort of maybe zoomed this in, made it just a touch bigger, and maybe, I know it's a fairly decent sized board, but they've still got that border. They could have made it maybe 10, maybe even, yeah, maybe 10% bigger, that actual board, and it could have just been a little less fiddly. But, you know, otherwise, it's quite cool seeing your cubes actually going out and across that map. With roll and writes, there is sometimes the issue of you can accidentally stumble down the same path that other players are doing, and everyone's almost not copying, but kind of copying. And in the first round, that can happen with this game, because depending on the way that the sort of different terrain types come out of that deck, there's sometimes a very logical way to use those to complete an area, or maybe get to an area that's just got lots of coins for you to collect. And then the special powers come in, and a few choices really start to impact things. So like those special cards, that's your power. So when that number 1 card comes out the deck, that's what you do, and it's very different from the cards that all of your opponents have chosen. You are now definitely doing something different. Maybe you are jumping across that water in a direction. Maybe you're filling that mountain, that plains area, that sort of deserty area. You are doing something different. And then you've maybe got one of those houses down on another part of the board that someone else hasn't. So then in round 2, take all the cubes off. Now I can explore from over here, but you can explore from over there. And chances are you're going to want to, because sort of the edges of the board are normally a little bit better than the middle, because it takes time to get out. So if you've got somewhere you can start in one location, you'll probably go out from there. And I've seen it really down the middle, where I had gone really sort of to the right of the board. I'd sort of travelled east, and then everyone, or not everyone, but one of the other opponents had really travelled west, and some people had sort of splattered around the middle, whereas we'd sort of rocketed out to the sides, but opposite sides. And it meant by the end of the game, you are very much doing different things. There's almost, well, it's practically impossible to sort of keep copying other people around the table. You have to be making your own decisions, and I really did enjoy that sort of deck, because it makes you excited when that card comes up, because you picked it. You got a choice of 2 powers and you picked it, and that's in level 1. That's going to trigger 4 times, maybe a 5th time in the game, because it will trigger in every round, all 4 rounds, and then you've got that bonus card of, do I trigger your power 1, 2 or 3 again? So you could really use that one ability that you have chosen, and they feel really strong. They're so much better than the normal placements, but they all feel strong. There was never one where it was like, oh, that does feel weak. And if there is, well, you've got the choice between the two, so you can kind of tailor where you're placing other cubes to try and maximise those abilities, and that is quite a lot of fun. The theming of the Guild of Merchant Explorers is a little beige. It's, yes, you're all sort of, you can think of it as you're going out across these regions and discovering villages and stuff as you go, but the colours and the cubes don't quite help sell that to me. Yes, there is the logics of the different terrain, and that kind of captures, I think, what they were going for. That you're journeying quite quickly, trying to get across in a straight line across this water, and then you're trying to maybe go across that mountain range and different things like that. And they're a little bit easier and harder. It's harder to get across the mountains because there's only a 1 mountain card, whereas there's sort of a 2 desert card that just comes out of the deck. So it's easier naturally to get across one lot of terrain than another. And that does work very nicely and makes you think, yeah, this is easier, that's harder. And sort of you need to dial that into your plans. But I think with the colouring of the map, like this grey is supposed to be water. It doesn't feel very sploshy. It feels very gloomy. And I don't know whether that's necessarily what they were planning on making it. It doesn't help sell the theme here. And the cubes, if they were maybe just sort of meeples or something like that, putting these supposed explorers down, the cube just felt very generic. I really like the little town place things that you put down. That's distinctively different from the cubes, which is great as you're removing the cubes. The towers, the discovery towers, which are sort of normally on the outer edges, they're cool. They sort of stand off the board quite a bit. But why cubes for explorers? You've gone through the effort of those other cool custom wooden pieces. Why not make them little meeples or whatever for the explorers? Having the 4 different maps is both a positive and a it's okay. They do add slight differences to the way that the game plays, but to be honest, just playing on that first map a few times, the way the cards come out the deck after that first round when everyone's starting to get their powers and such, that feels very different from one game to the next. And in fact, it's that powers deck of those, you know, those special abilities that you're going to have a choice of and everyone's got a different choice of, that makes much more difference to the game than the different maps. I like, though, that there are different maps. It feels like there's sort of a mini expansion included in the game, but they don't necessarily add as much variety as that other deck. Combined, it does mean games feel different from one play to the next, though, so that is a really good thing about the game. So overall, I very much enjoyed the Guild of Merchant Explorers. Its name and somewhat theme make it sound like it could be a little bit dull, and if it was just for the turning a card over and putting a cube on this terrain or that terrain, the game could potentially, you know, not be good at all. But everyone getting those special powers and a choice, everyone having something different to do around the table, but they're not feeling, well, very powerful. No one's felt overpowered against compared to each other. That was a lot of fun, that everyone had done something quite different. One player, you know, maybe was just spamming down loads of different villages in one terrain type. One person is going along around the sea, getting to all of the different ship ruins and sort of getting chest cards and hoping for end game points. Yeah, there's a good amount of choice in there, and with the 4 maps, there's variety. It's an enjoyable game. It does stay on the table, maybe longer than you would think for a flip and write, but actually you're making choices throughout the whole experience, so it never really felt like there was a lot of downtime or sort of you weren't doing anything in that time. You were invested in your exploration for that entire time, and even if someone else was going, being a bit slow, you could be planning where you're trying to get to next and how are you going to work with the cards being flipped. So yeah, really enjoyed the game. Very much one that I think people should definitely try and get to the table, trying it at convention or whatever this year. So that is the Guild of Merchant Explorers. It really could have done with a better name, but the gameplay is certainly solid. The game was provided to me by AEG, so I have to say that, but it's not changed my thoughts on the game. I've enjoyed it, I've given you a few negatives, and, well, check out other news and reviews and stuff on the channel, and I'm Oliver East, signing out.